Hi everyone. It's always a thrill for me to be here at a bar event as one of the founding members of the club. It's always amazing that it still exists and is doing well. So thank you to everyone who's making that happen, because a lot of clubs that doesn't work for, they burn out, so it's great. Tonight I was asked to talk about what's going on with the Aquaria spawning that I'm doing at home. It's going to sound like it's crazy and you shouldn't do it, and that's exactly the wrong thing you should take away from this talk. It's only crazy if you're a crazy person like me, who somehow thinks if I believe it enough, it will manifest. So that's why I'm so invested in it. I think you could do this a lot easier, and you could be a lot less caught up in it working, and your life would be more fun. And the reason I want people to do it is because clownfish used to be impossible to breed. I remember clownfish being impossible to breed. I remember doing clownfish because more people needed to do clownfish to make it not impossible. And then all of a sudden, you know, and I did it, and it was very exciting. And then like 3 years later, you know, we're just maggoty with clownfish. There's too many people with clownfish. So don't think that you can't do this, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Just here's a nice kind of summation of what's going on with the spawning. If you don't know, the adult corals put all their gametes out into the water, and the ones we're talking about are these are called spawners, not brooders. There's some corals that take sperm and egg inside, and then they put out a planula that's ready to go. That's not what happens. And these corals are not gonochoric. They're not male or female, and they're not really hermaphroditic either. They put out a sperm and egg bundle, and but they can't self-fertilize. So you do need two different genotypes, two different parents. So the bundle goes up, it splits apart. Then there's fertilization of the eggs. It's a sperm egg bundle, if I didn't say that. And then they start to develop, and it's very exciting. Then they turn into this potato chip stage. And then they get round again, and you think everything's dead because it looks like nothing anymore. And then it turns into like a teardrop, and then it gets elongated, and then it swims around. Corals swim when they're babies. It's insane. And then they settle down forever in one spot, and then they become corals. So that's kind of what's working. I just wanted to put the resources up there because the resources are out there. It's not like the information doesn't exist. The Coral magazine. Oh, the first thing you gotta look at is Jamie Craig's paper. Jamie Craig's is the guy who spearheaded all this in like 2015 and blew our minds that it could happen. And then in 2021, three of us who've been doing it for a while wrote articles for Coral magazine. There is a butt ton of information in that issue. And then there's a bunch of talks that Jamie and I have done. I think Carrie's done a couple as well that are out there for the hobby kind of side. And then this is the other thing everybody asked for. This is this year's season table in the Apex. So I just wanted to say this exists. I tweak it a little bit, and you know, you can wrap it around so you get different months and stuff, so you can make your spawning at different times. The important one is that there's an adjusted temperature, and because 82 and 83 I think is too high in our tanks. Every time I get anything above 81.5, I start losing stuff. So even though the schedule says to go up high, it seems like all that matters is that it changes, not that it gets to 84. I am not running a tank at 84 ever again and watching all the parents die. It's just no fun. This is the kind of stuff that we care about in making the spawn happen. So there's two chunks to the spawn. One is getting the corals to develop gametes, which seems to take between 3 and 8 months, depending. All of this is new, so if you do it, you figure out something we don't know. That would be awesome. And temperature over the year, it matters to help develop gametes. And then there's the spawning. And the spawning, we thought there was a lot of things that triggered the spawn, but it's really looking like the moon cycle is really what matters. And it really looks like that's about 3 months before the spawn. right? So we talk about keeping the corals dark, or we will. We don't do that all year. It's just when the spawn is, because we're stopping the light pollution. It looks like the real trigger for a spawning event, a synchronous spawning event, is the time difference between sunset and moonrise. And that's how the corals are kind of deciding when to spawn. Although, weird things happen. This is the home lab. That's kind of what it looks like. It was built, it used to be a cephalopod breeding room, and now it's a coral breeding room, and it kind of looks like that. That's what it looks like most of the year when I've cleaned it up. And so the corals need that darkness, right? So when the real sun goes down, never mind. They need darkness. And the way I'm doing that is with a couple of pieces of acrylic that are cut to fit in the track of the stand, which is the 80-20, what is 80-20. And it's nice, and it just sits in there, and they slide back and forth. And that's what it looks like kind of when it's open. And that's what it looks like when you've got a red light on and you're checking for a spawn. I have it set so the sunset in the tanks during the spawning time happens about 2 hours before the real sunset, and the spawn happens about 2.5 hours after sunset. So by doing that in November and December means that when the spawning is happening, or when I'm going to be checking for setting, which I'll show you in a minute, it's dark outside, so I don't have to darken my whole room, right? I was going to get, blackout shades, and I didn't want to deal with that, and I went, I can just schedule it to be at night. Although, I would much rather them go at 2 in the afternoon than 7:30 at night, as it turns out. But it's a couple times a year, and the acrylic makes a great place to write stuff down. So that's how I keep notes. These are this year's gravids. So what we've been doing since I started doing this at the Academy in 2018 was actually at the Academy we'd go to Palau and I'd collect corals and bring them back. So we would check the corals to make sure they had eggs, and then we would take a piece of the corals that had eggs, because we would know then in 2 months they'd be ready to spawn. So the other way to do it is you just find a supplier who can get them for you. And for me, that was Unique Corals. They helped me out a few times, and I'm really, really thankful for it. So these are all Australian corals, and I got these at the end of October, which was too late. I have an ulcer this year. I want them in September so they get used to everything on a longer time frame, but we couldn't get them. There were storms, there was boat damage. But anyway, they all arrived. This is where they were collected. Since you need a different mother and father, they can't be related or you won't get fertilization. I asked them to collect them at least 40 meters away from each other, and they went nuts, and they're collected all over the reef. So pretty clear that I'm going to have different genotypes, which is very exciting. Then this year, this is the crazy thing. This is Acropora hyacinthus from a spawning in 2020. So I've grown these from sperm and egg from 2020 till now, and when I cracked some of the corals to see if they had eggs in them, that's how you see. You break a branch off and you look in, and this is what it looks like. You can see here, this is the Millipora. This is the ones that came from Australia. These are kind of nice pinkishy egg bundles. Oh, those are actually just the eggs. They're not bundles yet. And here's the hyacinthus, and the hyacinthus has got wider eggs. So this was about a month before this, so I figured they were going to go in the same time. So I was very, very excited. So that means if the hyacinthus go, I've done F2s. I've had babies make babies, which is apparently a big deal in captive breeding. So very exciting. This is the high-tech spawning area. Actually, it's the larval, it's the IVF, it's the incubator, it's the toddler playground, it's where all the babies are going to hang out. I've got too much stuff going on in the other tanks right now to be able to use the tanks as double duty. So I use my DIY stuff that I learned as an aquarist, and basically this is a sump and this is a tank. Yeah, kind of, right? And there's a There is an overflow, so they do this and come back up. But there's also a dose pump that draws water from these tanks, drops it in here, and then pulls it out of here. And I originally thought I would do like 10 gallons a day. There's about 15 gallons in each of those, and I went, that's stupid. I'm running them at maximum. So they're doing 140 liters a day, which is 5,000 gallons. I don't know what that is. But it's the biggest water change I can think of, because why not, right? If they're sitting there all day and something goes wrong, I'd rather have them have the buffer by the constant water change all the time. All right, we'll get to some more. So you get your corals, you know they've got eggs in them. When are they going to spawn? You kind of figure that out by when the full moon is in relation, when the full moon is. My stuff in the academy and at the house go reliably about 12 days after the full moon. In the wild, they go about 3 or 4 days after the full moon. The moons at 14 days here, 12 days here, and in the wild are nothing alike. So I really don't know why it's working, but it does. So I'm not going to cry too much. All I care about is that I can predict when the spawn is, and that's what's called taco time, for no good reason, some really random emoji reason that's stuck. So I predicted a spawn the 11th, 12th, or 13th in November, and then the 10th, 11th, 12th of December, and then we'll talk about why these are circled. Or maybe we won't. We'll talk about it now. We had a weird spawn. I had 3 spawns this year instead of 2. They went early. Some of the Millipora went early, which is kind of near when they went in the wild, and then the rest of them went here. And then the Hyacinthus went here. It was a real kind of pain in the butt. But it's an exciting pain in the butt, right? Like, have you ever talked about your tank as a big pain in the butt, right? But it's still fun? Okay, otherwise why would you be here? No, I hate it, Rich. I'm just come here because I'm a masochist. So I watch for about 2 weeks. I stay up every night and look for spawning, setting, because sometimes weird things happen. The first spawn we did in 2018, we were watching for 2 weeks, and then we were going to be done. And it was Sunday, and I was at work. And I was like, I'm going to look anyway. We did not have a spawn, and everyone was bummed. And then at Sunday, at the right time, except a day later than we thought would be possible, they're all set, and it was crazy. And it was me alone, so that was fun. So what setting is, when we talked about the sperm-egg bundles, that's these things. And they are pushing their way up into the mouth of the coral, or the manus, the mouth anus. The manus. They come out, and they sit like that for 20 minutes to an hour, and then they all get ejected. It's crazy. This is a hyacinthus. This is the first year they went, so I don't know what they would do. Well, that looks really good on this picture. My photography skills are better than that. This is red lit. They came out, and it took like 2 hours before they spawned. It was like, come on! It was like yelling at them. That's what it looks like in more light, and that's what it looks like from above. All these pimply things are eggs. So they went big this year. It was very fulfilling. And then they spawn, which kind of looks like that, right? It's like a snowstorm going upwards. The first time I ever saw this was in Anilao in Philippines, I guess in 2011. And 3 of us were on a night dive, and we didn't know anything about spawning then, like almost nobody did. And we were swimming around, we started seeing all this stuff, and the 3 of us all realized at the same time what was happening, and we started screaming. And it was like the second spawn observation in the Philippines. It was very amazing that it was just, 12 years ago that was happening. That's kind of what everything looks like from a little bit lower. That's what it looks like from the top. And then you collect everything, and here you go, your sperm egg bundles getting ready to go. There we go. That's a sperm egg bundle. You can see the eggs, like 6 to 12 eggs, and then a bunch of sperm. I don't know how you quantify how much sperm is in there. And then they break apart. and then they float around at the top and make a delicious soup, and fertilization happens, and then they float around on the top even longer, and then they swim down and find a place. Right? Since I'm doing it in a tank, we're going to collect all of those. I guess this can play. It's a little sped up because I wanted it to be. This is just collecting the gametes off the surface, and then I put them in gravy separators, wait for the sperm and eggs to separate, then I manipulate them to make it the right mix of sperm and egg. Too much sperm makes the baby go blind. Too much sperm, they don't like too much sperm. It actually can kill the eggs. They don't. It's like too many people at a rave. Nothing can happen, and that's what it looks like. This color of the water, we call it lemonade, and that's how we eye how much that your sperm density is correct. And I guess there's a video of that too. Yay! I don't want to take up all your time. And that's embryos. Every step of this is very exciting, and also terrifying, because at every step, 99% should die in the wild, right? That's why they put out millions of eggs. This is how I used to do it. These are what I like to call incubators, and they just sit. Is this a video? This might be a video, yeah. And we used to figure out all these complex ways to make the babies not stick to the walls of the whatever they were in. We would wash them down, or we would wake up every hour and take shifts. But now I just use a wave maker to gently bounce them, and it works really well, and I don't have to do anything else except fret, because I'm a nervous Nelly about it. So these are a bunch of different ones from last year. This year, that's what this is what's going on now. When I took the video, I only had one going, but it's the same thing. All that space is nice. I had 6 or 8 of them going in there. There's a fish in there too, because I had to pop its eye, so it had to go in there. I'm really liking having these tanks there though. Like, I come home with frags or something, they just go in there, and then I can deal with it when I'm awake. So you get the embryo, and then they start to develop. And the first 12 hours, by the way, you keep them very calm. Don't shake the baby. And after about 12 hours, you can start to shake the baby. This is that cornflake or prawn chip stage, depending on where you are in the world. That's cell division. That's a good thing. And then that's as they're folding up and starting to get round again. And then they start to do this. Right? So that's just crazy. Oh, apparently I put effects on this video, so that's exciting. But it never ceases to make me kind of just scream a little bit to see baby corals swimming around. And you can see a couple of them. One of the ones over here is starting to elongate a little. This one is too. That one. It's starting not to be round, which is what we're looking for. Here's the cilia. I was only able to get this once, but this is the cilia on the side of a planula swimming around. I've not been able to redo that shot, so it'll be in every talk forever. To give you a size, a feel for how big a larva is, I call them a larva or a planula, it's the same thing. That's the planula, and that's my finger, so that's my fingerprint. So they're small. And then this is a picture I got this year. It made me very happy. It's almost ready to start settling. And apparently I put the, yeah, why is this here? So you can see more things floating around. Oh yeah, that's right. Every step needs something different. So for a week or two, I need air bubbles in different places, and I need calmer water, and I need no recirculation. And then I need both, and then I need no air. So I don't bother to make it all neat and clean, because it's going to change in a few days, and it may change every day as well. And then this is the next step. You have settlement substrates. Why do we call them settlement substrates? Because it sounds scientifical instead of tiles. These are aragonite. I did a mix of aragonite and what's the other one? Ceramic this year. I think they like the aragonite ones better, but the aragonite ones were seasoned longer. So I take these and I put them in a tank somewhere and let them get a biofilm and maybe a little bit of coralline algae. Although put a pin in that, because coralline algae is wonderful and frickin' evil. Coral love to settle on coralline algae. Coralline algae don't like things settling on it, so they have all kinds of ways to fight it. They'll slough them off, they'll engulf them. It's very exciting and annoying. But they need some kind of biofilm. If you don't have a biofilm, they tend not to want to settle. Unless you have the right species of coralline algae, which nobody knows what it is, but if they know what it is in England, but I haven't been able to get any of it over here. And then you can just use fresh tiles and crush up the coralline and sprinkle it in, and it will give the corals a cue to settle, and then you don't have to deal with coralline algae for the rest of the growing up time. This is a video, I just wanted to show you, up here is a settling tray, and it is actually tied with gear ties to the top of the tank. And that's to keep the overflows. There's a slit cut in each end, and it's got micro mesh on it, right? You want some water going through there, but too much water, and either it'll flush out the babies or it'll make them stick to the screen. So I keep that above the water line so water doesn't push in. The only water that's going out is a little bit that I'm dripping in over time. I think this is a video. Yeah, so that's a pretty aggressive drip. It's usually not that much. And then down at the bottom is me starting to get the sediment substrates ready to go. And so what I do is I drop this down once they've settled, so there's more flow, and then I remove them out of there. I remove the tiles out of there and mount them on something that's going to make my life easier down the line. This is a planula attacking a substrate to settle. That's what they do, and they boom. Now it doesn't necessarily settle right then. They can move around for days and days and days before they finally decide to settle down. And here you go. These are settlers, and here's another planula still swimming around. So I think it's super cool. Let's see, is this gonna be able to see? Oh, here's a time lapse I was able to capture last year that made my head explode. That bubble will pop. Oh look, I'm a coral now. So they just push down, they affix, and they attach as good as they can, and then over the next 24 to 48 hours they do a lot of energy and become a skeleton inside, which is great. That's what they look like pre-skeleton, right? This guy here, and this lady here. And this is a day or two later, and they have a skeleton inside, and they've got a polyp, they've got tentacles, they eat. And then a couple weeks after that, they start to uptake the, we don't call it zooxanthellae anymore. What do we call it? Symbiodinium. Ooh. The symbiotes, right? The algae inside. It's not really an algae, right? It's a dinoflagellate, but whatever. It's very cool. And then sometimes some tentacles have them and others don't, and it's very confusing. For scale, this is what we're talking about. And that's about 2 months old because there's multiple polyps. Then this is a lot of life, is looking at these guys and keeping them clean. So it's right, and here they are even more. This is a more advanced one. It's got a couple of polyps. It's very dark. This is a hydroid, and this one's lagging. And there's some other bad stuff there too. Here's coralline algae being horrible. I hate you. The other one is bad too. The problem is you can scrape it, but what often happens, you know, they're that big. And so I got dental tools and the microscope, and you get in there. If they've settled on the coralline, the scraping can also mean you could pop the whole thing of coralline off, and then you go, oh baby, and then there's nothing to be done. Algae's a horrible thing. Yeah, so we hate algae, so you can scrape that as well. I'll show you at the end. I have a new tool in this battle. The couple of the traditional tools are, we don't nail them with light from the start, because that just fuels, while it keeps the coralline a little bit down, it just makes algae grow like crazy. Jamie Craggs, again, was like, well, why don't we, Jamie and I were at a workshop in Florida, where Martin Moe was presenting that he had spawned diadema urchins. That's important because diademas, they all died in 1982, and then they recently had another die-off, and that's why a lot of the Caribbean reefs are algae covered now instead of coral covered. So he went, well, heck, why don't I cold culture a tropical urchin to put in there? So he did tuxedo urchins. There's a paper on that too. ORA this year was very nice. They weren't very nice. I was lagging, and I called them and said, oh God, nobody's got urchins. Do you have urchins? I said just like that. So they would take pity on me. And they said, no, absolutely. And they happen to have some of the right size. So they take care of the algae. It's nuts. And this year I have everything in one small, they're in those tubs, right? So I've got something like 270 tiles that have got babies on them. And there's 100 urchins in there. And those urchins are doing a great job. I've even started putting light on them now because the urchins are kicking them back, kicking the algae back. There's also baby trochus snails. It turns out they're all on that side of the picture that's not on the screen. But in my lab tanks, at night, there's a ton of baby trochus. So I go in there and I get a net and I kind of collect them and then I throw them in with the babies. In fact, I have to do that tonight. Again, it's another cold culturing. In Jamie's paper about it, the survivorship with the urchins is way more than with the trochus. The trochus will eat the film. The urchins will chow down on a little bit more, but a little bit more grown algae. But it's the same. Herbivores are not going to eat long algae. It's, like deer won't eat branches, they'll eat the shoots. So you scrape it down so it's small enough, and then your herbivores go to town. And then you wait a few months and they start growing, and it's great. And then you can see them and you're all excited. Of course, they're dying all the time, right? You start with 10,000 of them, and then one day you go, oh, a lot of them are empty. I wonder what that was. Maybe I didn't feed enough. Maybe I fed too much. Maybe I fed the wrong thing. Maybe the temperature wasn't enough. Maybe it was too low. Maybe it was too high. Maybe the alkalinity. So, if you're like me, it's like, what did it? But who cares? They also will settle gregariously. And what we had here, this is from last year's spawn. These are two different genotypes of baby coral that hate each other. Oh no, that's not what I'm showing here. That's true though, but that's not what I'm showing here. I'm showing this. The dreaded CCA, and there it is removed. So with dental tools, at this stage it's a lot easier because the corals are bigger, they're not going to fall off. But yeah, you got to get it off. And then I realized that these are different genotypes and they're not growing together, they're fighting, they're hating each other. So I took the bandsaw out and I just cut them all up into little pizza pieces like that. And then they started growing like gangbusters, and they look pretty good. This was a while ago. Oh, and here's today. This is the biggest ones from last year, almost ready to frag, which is super exciting. Actually, I better move these because see how that's turned? It's turned because of that, so I should fix that. But I've been busy the last 2 months. Talked about the tiny urchins. We talked about cold culturing the urchins because the thought is that the big urchins are going to destroy everything. And the baby urchins aren't. And I wanted to see if that's true, so I decided to do a kaiju thing where I took a big urchin and let it run havoc over some settling substrates. And this is what happened. No one's seen this yet except on the Discord. Here's on the left is an algae-covered mess, and on the right is after the urchin got done with it. And I did this with just one urchin in a sequestered area in a tank, so that nothing else could get in there. And I left it afterwards for a while, and then the snails got it. And big snails are the worst because they keep that shell low, and they just kind of, here's your baby coral, and here's your snail shell, and pop, pop, pop. But it was a test. But you can see there's still a lot. In fact, the first time I did it, I found they were all still there. They had not destroyed a single one, but they had totally taken care of the algae problem. Here's another depressing CCA picture. Over here, you can see them starting to get subsumed. But I definitely had the most settlement on the CCA. Here's the cool new thing, the new battle, the new tool is a ultrasonic plaque remover that I bought to try to kill vermitid snails. It works really well if you put it inside the vermitid snail shell, but so does a dental pick, so it's not worth it. But I like to try things, and then I thought, I was laying in bed and I went, wait a minute, I bet you it's really good for CCA and algae. So check this out. Oh yeah, this is a little sped up because while it's exciting for a minute, it's not exciting for a long time. It seems to be working really well. This is like 3 days old, this idea. And you'll see it just pops it away. And this is what I was doing just before I got here. And by the way, that settler looks like it's already got 3 mouths, so that's exciting. It also works really well for, come on, video. There we go. It works really great for algae. So instead of like having to put pressure on the settlement tile, you just run this thing along it 3 or 4 times and it just erases the algae. I just got a new head for it that's more like a wedge, and you just and it's really satisfying. It's not as satisfying on the coralline because you've got to be careful, but you can stand there and let the tool do all the work, and so it's a lot less stress on your body. 270 tiles, if they need to be cleaned, that's a lot of this on a microscope. So being able to stand up straight and go like this and let it do the work is pretty awesome. And then this is the hyacinthus spawned late, and I had already like packed stuff up, so I didn't really have everything ready for it. And so because of that, the fertilization went great, and they were developing really nicely at about hour 12, and then I came back at hour 14, and it was like the culture completely crashed. And I was able to save like 50 or 100 planula and put them in their own settling box. And out of that, I've got 4 of these, F2s, which is pretty exciting to me because they're F2s. They wouldn't exist in the wild. And that's it today with a skeleton. So it's very exciting. All of these people help make things happen. I couldn't do it without them. Slide Lock made me these really cool racks that make my life easy, right? They're just a small rack like this that I can put in a Tupperware and take to the microscope to do my cleaning. Really, really helpful. I don't know why that's there, except I think it's funny. And that's it.